Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Breakthrough Club. In case it's your first time, Breakthrough Club is a talk show hosted by Follows and Bound, and each week we bring a special guest, marketing, sales, or a business leader who are helping their organization rise above the noise. And today we're so pleased, and I want everybody to help me welcome Lina Saba, the Director of Sales and Marketing at Park Place Senior Living. Lina, thank you so much for giving your time today.
Yeah, thanks, Rafi.
Beautiful. So if you can please introduce yourself, your role in the organization for the audience.
Sure. My name's Lina Saba. I work as the Marketing and Sales Director with Park Place Seniors Living. I've actually worked in seniors housing, seniors care, my entire professional career, actually. So 15 years, I graduated from the University of Alberta in Edmonton, and I worked the first number of years in advocacy for provincial associations. So I worked with ASHA, based out of Edmonton, again, kind of advocating for independent living, supportive living for seniors throughout the province. Left Alberta for sunnier weather in BC. So I got on board with, actually I first tried to get out of seniors housing. I tried everything I could to get out, but apparently once you're hooked in, you don't get out. My first mentor told me that. I didn't believe her, but it's 15 years later. So anyway, so I came here and I worked for the BC Seniors Living Association, and learned a lot about the differences in the markets between Alberta and BC. A lot more private sector, private pay options out here. It's a little bit more of a retirement draw to come to BC. So I learned a lot in that regard. And then I started working in private sector. So I worked with a real estate developer on their very niche retirement properties as a marketing consultant. So I really kind of brushed up their marketing campaigns and the branding and really shifted their focus to digital as opposed to kind of the more traditional advertising and marketing. So I did that for just about 5 years. And then most recently, just actually in October. So I'm like 6 months fresh into this role. And Park Place is quite a large organization. We've got over 30, I think there's about 35, 36 seniors homes, and it runs a huge range. The majority of them are long-term care, which is a bit new for me. It's kind of a higher level of care. And then a lot of my focus, we do have a portfolio of, I think there's about 8 that are independent living, supportive living, and private pay. And so that's really a lot of my focus in terms of sales and marketing. And then in just the bigger picture, kind of the brand and the reputation management for the whole company.
Absolutely. Wow. So that's an impressive background, almost 15 years, and kind of in the same industry, but kind of going deeper and diversifying kind of your role in the industry. So tell us more about Park Place Senior Living as an organization.
Sure. It's a family-owned and operated company, which I find really nice. And in terms of looking for a job personally, that's something that appealed to me. So Al and Jenny Gina are the owners. Al bought his first seniors home in Nelson, BC in 1993. And so, it's just, that was one kind of campus of care, large building. And then since then has expanded tremendously. I think really the last time I kind of looked at the company a number of years ago, I think they had 10 to 12 properties. And just in the last few years, they've really expanded, mainly through acquisition. So they're quite large. We've got one property actually also in Ontario, which is new in Niagara Falls. Yeah, so the majority, again, though, the majority are between Alberta and BC. So family run, and we're just kind of catching up at our kind of corporate leadership level to really properly support a lot of our sites. It's interesting because, each of these communities, like the way I look at seniors housing and care is at a corporate level, we're really there to support them because they're a little, individually run operations on their own. They've got their own management, they've got their own kind of HR, they've got their own accounting systems. And so, our role is, to kind of help them implement best practice and to kind of, the purchasing power is a big part of that too, to control our costs and that type of thing. So I really see our role at head office, so to speak, as a support role to them. So it's an interesting organization, lots of change, lots of different geographical areas, like especially with COVID recently, dealing with numerous health regions and their different,
Exactly.
communication styles and rules. So it's challenging, but extremely engaging.
I can see that. And then thank you for bringing this up, Lina, regarding the concept of you're now kind of working in the corporate office, and your client is the regional operation, and
Mm-hmm.
each one have their own perspective, their own culture. They're more close to their clientele. They have their own P&L, maybe their own communication system,
Yeah.
those kind of things. So they are really your client from that perspective. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
working closely with the leadership team to
Mm-hmm.
ensure consolidation of service, and I'm assuming optimization of procurement of services and service
Mm-hmm.
provider, things like that. So walk us now through pre-COVID, what was kind of the main focus, I would say,
Well, in my role in sales and marketing, and a lot of what I was directed in the early days was really to focus on our private pay sites with some occupancy challenges, so to speak. So, we have some buildings in markets that are a bit tougher. I mean, in Alberta particularly, just generally, the economy has been suffering, before COVID. So we have some markets, our market up in Grand Prairie and our market down in Medicine Hat in particular, we're struggling a bit to fill those independent living units. They're private pay. And so a lot of my focus was into like coming up with a plan, like how do we maximize our investment in advertising. And of course, a lot of that was uncovering the need to do some sales coaching also with those sites. So I think probably the biggest challenge related to that, excuse me, is that, they're in very different areas. I mean, for me to get from Burnaby to Medicine Hat on a regular basis or to Grand Prairie is challenging. We don't have, and again, because the organization is mainly focused on the kind of clinical long-term care side, those buildings are funded through provincially. And so a lot of the focus of the organization is on funding models, lobbying government to make sure that we have enough resources to make this work. So, the focus on, sales and marketing and the way we need to care about our brand and all these other things that we need to be doing on a regular basis has never been a real full focus of the organization as a whole. So that's kind of, so it's one thing saying like, we need to, increase sales. Sure, we all do. But what I kind of started uncovering were these additional challenges. And so a lot of it is kind of educating the organization on why we need to invest in these things. And it's not just beneficial for the private pay, it's also going to be beneficial on the publicly funded side too, from a reputation perspective, which again is coming a lot clearer with COVID and with our kind of industry as a whole. So. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing this up, because I can see like they brought you as a leader from outside, that you have been in this industry for 15 plus years, but they have been running their operation, and clearly they were doing an amazing job doing that. But I can see now that the reason, like one of the key strategic reasons why now you're part of that team is kind of to take them to a different level when it comes to sales and marketing, communication, and kind of going above and beyond, if I may say, maybe the traditional model of managing those kind of services. So that was before COVID. And I kind of get that the focus was there at that point in time. I'm sure, of course, with COVID and maybe after COVID, or however the new life would be, definitely maybe new challenges came in. So now as director of sales and marketing, and communication is a big component of what you live and breathe each and every day in the organization. How walk us through how you're dealing with that.
When it first, our organization was so fast, and I'm so grateful, and I continue to be, with how quickly they were on top of, we need to get together and meet. We need to put in protocols and regulations. We can't wait. We need to make sure we're shutting the doors to visitors. I know that and so everything was wrapped up in safety, obviously.
Awesome.
And trying to manage the kind of bit of panic, I guess. Luckily, when I think back, we had our first extended set meeting. So with all the directors as well as the VPs, which was great. So it was this opportunity that we had, like, I think it was weeks before the outbreak. So I actually got to see some of these folks face to face, because a lot of our team is actually based in Calgary or based in Edmonton. So we had this opportunity to all connect and share kind of what we're focusing on. So when the time came, you know, we had these meetings via Zoom conference call, and so my entire role shifted into communications, which I was excited about in a lot of ways, because that's kind of where I got my start, was communications and with the advocacy groups anyway. So I had a good idea of what kind of needed to be done, you know, and, you know, you kind of flip into like crisis communications mode. So, you know, very quickly, the most important thing for us was to, for me and from my perspective, obviously, was communicate with our leadership, and that's fine. But I was like, we need to talk to our family members and the residents themselves. We need to give them peace of mind and comfort, and have them know what's happening behind the scenes, so they know that because, you know, there's so much bad press about what's happened in other countries with seniors care. And then even now, currently, when we look at even just out east in Quebec and Ontario, they're suffering, you know, much greater losses than we are here. So, excuse me. So yeah, so we shifted our focus and so then I think you're aware, you know, we have another platform called Point Click Care.
Yes.
Which is a software platform mainly for our care homes. It's an excellent tool. And it's been being implemented for the last couple of years. So we're like, great, we'll have email addresses in there, because the people are supposed to type in that stuff with the contact information. And so very quickly we saw which sites were doing a really great job of implementing this great expensive tool we purchased and for make their lives easier. And then there were some that had like 3 email addresses, right? And again, not to say that they didn't have them somewhere, but they hadn't been using this tool, right? So anyway, so that was kind of our first focus. And a lot of it, again, was, you know, when we're talking to we had, you know, conference calls with all 36 to 40 of our site leaders, plus our management team of, you know, 12, you know, on these calls. And, you know, a lot of it is like, we're talking life and death for a lot of these policies and protocols, and a lot of stress and anxiety, and staff being scared of not showing up. And, you know, there's all these things. And then, you know, it would come to the point where we're talking about communications, and I'd sit there and go like, can everybody make sure you have email addresses? And a lot of the times they're like, we don't care about email addresses. That's not at the top priority for us. So that was the biggest challenge, was just really having them understand that, you know, this isn't going to be over in a week. So we need to get on top of this, because we're going to have to communicate consistently with this group, and email is going to make it easier for everybody. So it was very challenging in the first couple of weeks. But, you know, to be fair, everybody kind of jumped on board pretty quickly and made time, you know. Yeah. It found time.
And you know what? And at least I'm glad that there was, first of all, a leader like you trying to kind of, you know, point the light to the organization that, hey guys, you invested in a technology platform. That's actually the time to use this technology platform to be able to contain the situation from a communication perspective. And you brought a couple of great points, because I can see, you're wearing the hat of a communication leader, but also you're wearing the hat of a change management leader, because you're dealing with a different culture, and you were brought into that culture. Also, you start figuring out that there is different operation, which is very normal. Some of them adopted this communication technology model, others didn't. So you had to go quickly and kind of adjust that, so that they can become, you know, at least part of the rhythm of communication on a weekly or monthly basis, which is great, because that's part of change management. And as a sales and marketing leader, I would assume that's you live this each and every day. You're adjusting the sales team, the marketing, and all those kind of things. So you're actually hitting exactly on the right points, which is great. Can you walk us through, or give us some kind of, shed some light on the culture of the organization overall, and especially your sales team and the marketing in general, just from a high level culture perspective?
Well, it's hard to kind of pinpoint, because from at least specific to the sales and marketing side, I think the general culture of the organization itself is very kind of, again, based in, you know, this kind of publicly funded, and what we're doing is provide like kind of a healthcare, more of a healthcare kind of position and culture, I guess. So it's very, and I think it's great because I've worked in organizations that don't have a lot of policy. So it's a very policy driven, they do a lot of peer reviewed work, which again is just great because we have so much expertise and years and, decades and decades and decades of clinical experience from our site leadership and then our leadership team at corporate. So the culture is very focused around teamwork and everybody kind of contributing their thoughts. And again, the thing that was very refreshing very early with the new organization is that I guess dissenting voices are actually encouraged. And so it makes for interesting calls at times, but also that everyone does it because they care. Yeah. And that I mean, that's why I've been working in this business for as long as I have, is because you work with people who are there, not to bake huge bucks. They're there because they care about seniors, they care about families, they care about quality of life.
They want to add value. That's why they need to be heard. And that's why this is how the organizations stay.
So that's the culture. And so when it comes to this, it's been interesting on the sales and marketing front, because I would say that they are each site is very kind of individual in terms of the way that they want to speak about their community, the way they want to represent themselves. So there was a lot of, and again, I think that that's a really great thing when you look at some of the other really large operators of seniors housing, like your Chartwells or your Riveras, and they have a very consistent brand. It's very, it's Chartwell, whereas I think Park Place is a little bit more focused at that site level, at that regional level. And so, I think what we've been trying to do, and I think that that's an edge, is to kind of weave in, the brand, but also, allow them that flexibility to continue with their own culture when it comes to marketing themselves anyway. When it comes to the sales culture, I think it varies greatly. With an independent living type of model, people aren't moving in there because they need to, right? If grandma or grandpa falls and, finally really hurts their hip and they're 93 and, then it's kind of like, okay, she needs to move because she can't make it up the stairs anymore. She can't even lift, over that little edge to go out onto our balcony anymore. So you have to move. So it's independent living on the private pay, which is the majority of our private pay is independent living. You're trying to convince people to make a move because it'll enhance their quality of life, right? You're going to be more connected with people, your neighbors. You're going to have meal service, which you can go to a restaurant pretty much that we have downstairs, and you don't have to cook as much for yourself. You have housekeeping that's going to, and all the time when I hear these things, I'm like, I would move in there right now. Like that's my ideal life. And so it's convincing people to do that, to leave their family homes. And so it's hard. It's a hard sale to make. A lot of times a very emotional sale. So I think that generally the sales teams that we have right now are great. A lot of them are a bit fearful of, putting pressure on somebody, or what they perceive to be pressure. And what I'm trying to show them is actually relationship building. So, you're building a relationship of trust, and then you can kind of explain to them the benefits, or you can dig and find out what the real obstacles are, because people will say, I'm not ready. Well, what does that mean? Like, for what reasons are you not ready? Is it finance? Is it emotional? Is it like, what is it? So I think the culture for the sales team is passive. It's a bit passive. And so I'm trying to, train them to use some other mechanisms, and what they need are tools. They need some tools to be able to do that.
And I would say that's more of kind of Canadian kind of style of selling, and the reason why, because just nothing wrong with that. Like we work with a lot of Canadian and US organizations, but I can see also you're bringing a little bit of change in the sales process. That's what I'm hearing from you. You're bringing change in the sales process to make them more efficient, and to be able to actually dig deeper into why would the clients need a change. And in the relationship building model, what I'm hearing from you, Lina, is that you're showcasing that your sales team are becoming a trusted advisor to actually the family members who will be taking eventually a decision to help their parents kind of move into this new way of living, hopefully take.
Yeah, exactly. And I think and I mean the philosophy, and actually, in my last role when I worked for Tapestry with a real estate developer, that's something that I kind of really got a crash course in learning was about that whole, that building of trust, and you become an advisor, so you have such a relationship with somebody that even if what you have to offer isn't for them, you can tell them, you can give them a name and actually connect them with somebody who runs a property wherever.
Correct.
And say, you know what, this might not be for you, but I'll send you to Claire at whatever, and she'll give you a tour of her place. I think maybe that'll be a better fit for you. So I think that's what we'd want, right? That's
absolutely.
And I think that's the best way because even if they don't choose your property, at least then they will have good things to say about their experience with you. So there's a couple, and I was just starting to work with the sales teams on those types of things until, and then COVID's kind of, thrown a wrench in things, but yeah, we're trying to get back on track now.
That's beautiful. Now, taking you to the last question here is the channel and tools. You mentioned that you have point-click care. That's one of the tools you guys do from a sales and marketing perspective. Is there any future plans for other tools or other channels you guys would be, kind of using with your sales?
Yeah, for sure. Like we need one of the things that I was kind of floored when I first started was that they didn't have a CRM. They had nothing. So we have one sales, she's the manager, but she oversees all the sales in our Kamloops property, a very independent living kind of property. And she uses a database, and now I can't remember the name of it offhand, but she kind of realized like, oh, I need a better system to track this. And so, there's some industry specific databases out there, like, there's one called Sherpa, and there's You've Got Leads and so on. And so in my research and initially, and even previous, I'd started looking at HubSpot as an opportunity for the database, at least alone to begin with. So that's when I started kind of digging into that. And that's actually how I ran across Flawless. Yeah. And just looking at all I just think there's so many opportunities when it comes to marketing automation and email campaigns and that type of thing that would be in the long run is very cost effective.
Correct.
And so, again, it's because the organization is quite large, and because the majority of like we have point-click care, but that we don't have point-click care is not in any of our independent living sites because it's for care, it's for healthcare.
Yes.
So they don't have access to that tool, and as they shouldn't, because it's mostly about healthcare stuff. But so I need to kind of go like, well, let's start using the free database so that they can start seeing the benefits of having all the centralized data.
Correct.
And so that I can poke in there and we can have conversations about leads. Because a lot of times I think they might, and maybe it was from previous management styles, but they kind of think, oh yeah, no, I had this many leads and this is the number. And I'm like, I care about the numbers, but I don't actually care about the numbers. Like, let's talk about like the deals you're about, the moving you're trying to do.
Yeah, tell me more about what's in the deal. Is it true or not? Kind of.
Exactly. Yeah. And and what's your next move to try to connect with this person, or how are you going to creatively follow up with them? And so they're not there yet, and I'm like, I just want to let's talk about this. Let's make a game plan. Yeah. And so that's what I'd like to get them rolling with, and really effectively using that tool. So that we can kind of, and then you kind of release like, oh, what else we could do with this, and and kind of roll from there. That's the hope and the intention. I think like the seniors living market generally in Canada is very slow to take up new technology, take up new anything. Like I said, 15 years ago when I first started in the business, I was fresh out of university and I was like, why don't we have a Facebook page? Like the first place, and ever since they're like, well, we shouldn't, or, privacy problems, or, that's just for kids. And so, I started back 15 years ago, I started going like, no, you have to do this. And back then most seniors housing places didn't even have it. And it was just like, I'm like, are you serious? And so I'm like, 15 years later, I'm like, wow, okay, everybody's got Facebook now. Everybody's, using social media. People are doing digital advertising. Oh my goodness. But then again, like I roll into Park Place and they're like, oh, we don't have a CRM I'm like, what? Like, how do you not have a CRM? So it's just very typical, and it's nothing to do with the individual companies. It's just
It's the
It's what the
industry.
market is.
It's an industry.
It's
I
an
think
industry
it's an
thing.
industry approach, and,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you're here now, so that and especially your role now, because now you're really kind of sitting in the headquarters, so you can see all operation, you can see the value of consolidation, especially trying with a free tool like HubSpot CRM. They can see the value, and then you can start enabling some features and functions. And
Yeah.
of course, as a sales leader, what I'm hearing, what you're saying really is you want also a tool to help you in sales coaching, which then will kind of empower your sales team to actually be more of a trusted advisor. But how can you coach without having data to run some KPIs from and
Exactly.
to move into the next level? So at least I'm glad you're looking at some of those options.
Yeah. And again, like with COVID, the like, you know, as much, especially for our industry, it's like, you know, very, you know, there's a lot of very serious, you know, things happening, but there's also some silver linings, you know, and from this, you know, again, with social media, we had a handful of our sites who were doing some social media. And it was always like, we don't have time for that, or that's not really important, or nobody's really trained on it. And it's just exploded now because families are demanding it. You know, if family members can't go in to see their loved ones, they want to see them. They want to see them happy, and they want to know. They want to see inside the communities to make sure everything's okay. Because all of the rest of what they're seeing are these horrible, bad news stories about people being neglected and staff not showing up. And so there's a demand there. And so I'm kind of, you know, I'm kind of quietly going like, yes. So they all have to. They have to get on it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's been a real great thing. And so I think that now's the time, like, because of the forced change and the forced adaptation, it's kind of like, okay, well, let's use this as an opportunity to really implement some of these other systems that people were kind of resistant or claiming they didn't have time for before. So I think that it's a good opportunity right now.
That's amazing. You know, I'm hearing this from a lot of other organizations, and kind of they're really saying, you know what, maybe COVID is an accelerator for digital transformation, and that's kind of the basics of digital transformation, which is good in a way. And I'm glad a leader like yourself now is kind of placed correctly in this organization to handle kind of, you know, the cultural leadership team and what they want to do, handle consolidation, and then adjust and optimize sales and marketing to prepare the organization eventually for the future. So, Lina, I want to thank you so much for your time today. That was amazing. Any final thought for all the audience today? Just kind of an advice for them if they are a sales leader or a marketing leader in an organization. What would be the one or two things that they need to think of when dealing with the organization?
I think kind of, I guess, touching on what we just talked about, which is seeing this for the opportunity that it is. I started I always wanted to connect with my entire sales group together. A lot of them, you know, when you think about the difference between Grand Prairie and Medicine Hat and Kamloops and, you know, and then Squamish, you know, we have a number of private pay sales focused teams. So I've taken this time to connect us all on Zoom. And so they've met each other, and when they never met each other before, you know, and I always wanted them to meet each other because there's lots of kind of personality traits that are similar, or I'm like, oh, you love Susie because she, you know, da. So we've been able to start doing those. We launched them 3 weeks ago. And so it's a real opportunity for us to kind of work as a team in a way that we never had before. And also they're the sales ones, folks, are the ones who'll turn their camera on.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
The other people will not do it. They won't do it. And so it's been a real opportunity to kind of rally together and go like, how are we going to keep doing a really good job? And I think it's also a real opportunity for people to kind of go like, just share the ideas that maybe you were a little bit nervous for whatever reason to share before. Now's the time. Just everything's on the table. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I've had from this. All of our teamwork's accelerated at every level. So I think anything that you can kind of establish and build upon right now is the time to do it.
Beautiful. Lina Saba, Director of Sales and Marketing at Park Place Senior Living. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Sharing everything with us today. If somebody wants to know more about Park Place Living website, is it?
Yeah, it's just parkplacesenioursliving.com, so seniors plural. You can learn about all of our sites there. We've got a whole COVID page that actually talks a lot about all the kind of extra protocols and things we've had in place. So definitely check us out there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
And thanks for the audience today. I hope you guys got some feedbacks and some notes here. I'm learning a lot, and we'll see you guys very soon. Thank you, and bye for now.